Hey, welcome back to Resilient Building Cooperative Talk. I'm Matthew Andrews, founder and worker owner of Resilient Building Cooperative. Today I want to talk about 5 things that I see all the time that cost people lots of money on their home renovation projects or new additions through the Mass Save Rebate program. The first thing you need to know is you got to hire a HERS rater before you begin the demolition. Once the walls are open, we can't do an air leakage test, and that really hurts the final number on the rebates. You see, the way the program works is it's performance based. So you compare before and after. I like to think of it as like those ads you see for diet programs where the guy is skinny and it's impressive because you have the before photo of the guy weighing, 300 pounds. So you see that kind of loss, you see that kind of reduction in air leakage in a house, and that's what makes that's how you demonstrate that you've made the house more energy efficient. If the house is already under demolition, it's harder. The more things that you throw out from the old system, like an old furnace, we want those old model numbers so we can demonstrate the improvement. If you throw away things and you open up the house so that we can't be tested, we can still do it, but we have to use a baseline number that Mass Save sets for us. And it's a lot harder to show that really big improvement. I've had houses that, at the end of construction, they're still leaky, but they max out their rebates because they got so much better than where they were before. And vice versa. I've seen houses that, are actually decent, but they don't really max out the rebates because they didn't have that initial test. So that's number one. Hire a HERS rater, get that initial inspection before demolition begins. Number two is the next time the HERS rater needs to come in is before drywall. Once the drywall comes in, we can't inspect the insulation. We can model the final house with the insulation that you put, but we can't verify the quality of the installation job. And the installation itself is extremely important. If insulation has gaps, compressions, cracks, if it delaminates from the edge of the framing, these are all things that can hurt the insulation job. And so we grade insulation, just a simple system, grade 1, 2, or 3. If we can't see it, if it's behind drywall, it's grade 3. If you haven't called in a HERS rater at all yet, it's too late to get rebates. You have to do the initial inspection and insulation inspection before drywall goes up. The whole point of the program is that you've demonstrated that by employing a HERS rater, you've made energy efficiency improvements that you might not have otherwise made in order to get a better rebate. And that's really what the money is there to incentivize, not just to give you a reward after the fact for having done a good job. So definitely have that and set aside time for that. Sometimes I see the insulation is done on a Thursday, and Friday the drywall guys are rolling in, and it just doesn't make sense. Give yourself a day or two in the schedule for the HERS rater to come, clean up any mistakes, any holes, any gaps. It'll last the lifetime of the house. It'll make the house more comfortable. It'll reduce utility bills. It's really worth taking the time to have an independent third-party professional verify that a good job was done. Third is skipping the air leakage test. Actually, so I just talked about insulation. You don't actually have to do an air leakage test at mid-construction. And sometimes people skip it. And unless you're really confident that your insulation team does a good job every time, it can be risky. I would always recommend it. And the reason is there are air leaks that you cannot see with the naked eye. You can be seeing cracks in the framing and chasing after it with caulking and going nuts with it. And a lot of times that's a waste of time because that's not where the air leaks are. The air leaks are going to be somewhere else that you don't even notice. So when you run a blower door, you depressurize the house. The air gets blown out of the house down to 50 pascals. And with that kind of negative pressure, you've got air coming in wherever there are leaks. You can just put your hand up and you will feel the air coming in. It's real simple. And you might see cracks in the framing, places where two boards are side by side and you can see air in between them. But if you touch it and there's no air coming through, it's tight. So, and then other times, there'll be places where framing is coming together and you can't really see where the insulation ends. It's somewhere back there in the cavity. It seems to be full, but air might be leaking through and you can't tell unless you're like on a ladder with a flashlight. And then even then maybe, the cavity curves and runs down a shaft and, exposed to the outside somewhere you don't see. So definitely do an air leakage test. You're there, the rater is there already anyways to do the insulation inspection. The insulation inspection is required by Mass Save. It's required for a HERS rating. Do the air leakage test anyways. It's not about getting a number, it's about finding those leaks and fixing them before the drywall goes up. 4 is make sure your heat pump is on the heat pump qualified products list. Your HVAC installer should also be in the heat pump installer network with Mass Save. And he should know what equipment he's installing and whether or not it qualifies for a rebate. You can go to the Mass Save website, you put in that crazy acronym, HPQPL. It's Heat Pump Qualified Products List. And, if it's Energy Star, if it's Cold Climate Certified, it's probably on that list. We're in Massachusetts here, so really every heat pump that's conditioning living space ought to be on that list. But it's worth checking because if you're doing a whole house or a whole apartment, it's $10,000. If you're doing a duplex with 2 units, that's $20,000, one for $10,000 for each unit. So it's a lot of money. It's worth going to the website. I'll link to it in this show notes. Definitely look it up and just make sure that you are qualifying with the heat pumps, because there's nothing worse than getting to the end of the job and realizing that a model number is 1 digit off from what we thought it was, and you don't qualify. Lastly, fossil fuels in additions are no longer allowed. That will disqualify the entire project. And this includes basements. If you have an unconditioned basement and you insulate it and turn it into conditioned space, that's treated like an addition. So you cannot just, if you have an old, you have a gas burning furnace, even if it's one of these high efficiency gas burning furnaces, you can't just run some ductwork and heat that basement for an addition and still get Mass Save rebates, unfortunately. I know it sounds like a simple solution, but they want to encourage people to get off of the fossil fuels and to go all electric, and that means no fossil fuel conditioning for additions. The only kind of exception is that if you have a bathroom with a sink, you can run a hot water pipe off of the existing water heater, even if it's a gas burning water heater. But in terms of actually heating the space, you got to go electric. And if you're going to go electric, you might as well go heat pumps. I mean, the baseboard heating is so expensive. The whole idea of the heat pumps is that you're being more efficient than straight resistance heat. What they call resistance heat, electric resistance heat. It's like baseboards are like a toaster. You're just sending electricity through a wire and letting it heat up. The heat pump actually magnifies. You can get 3-4 times the efficiency through a heat pump. So it makes a lot of sense to do it anyways, but just to warn people, because I see it a lot, there's people are doing additions and they think they can just, especially if they have a central air system with vents, they think they can just run another vent through, a few supply vents and condition the space. It seems like an easy solution, but you're not allowed to do that if you want you want to qualify for the Mass Save Renovations and Additions program. So that's my top 5 list. Leave comments. Let me know if you've had any trouble with qualifying before, other pitfalls. But those are the top 5 that I've seen with my clients. And I gotta make this video to try and hammer it in, try and avoid those pitfalls before they happen. So you get to the end of that renovation project, you get $10,000-$20,000 for that renovations program, another $10,000 for the heat pumps. $500 for an induction stove, another $100 for a smart thermostat. Get all the benefits you can. There's a couple $100 for the hot water heat pumps now too. So please pay attention to those details. And share this video with somebody you know. If you're not doing a renovation, you probably know somebody who does. You see it all over just driving around. I see renovations going on everywhere, additions going up everywhere. So I know there's a lot of work out there. Click to like this video and subscribe, and we're going to be putting out more in the near future. Thank you.